Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Kershaw Launch 7. This is a relatively inexpensive, I say that, just hang on, relatively inexpensive USA-made automatic knife from Kershaw. Kershaw's launches, the Kershaw Launch line. My gosh, what am I saying today? Pretty cool. This was sent to me. Those are the initials of the person. That's not, doesn't actually come with a knife. This was sent to me by Wanted Garage, or the one and only, right? Wanted Garage on Instagram, the one and only on Reddit. Please give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me. You can find a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I will be linking the Launch 7 right down here where you can get it. You can absolutely pick it up right now, as well as the rest of the Launch line. And I think they're up to the launch. There are like 13 or 14 different models. It's a pretty extensive line. Overall length of the Launch 7 coming in at, wow, yeah, 8.7 inches overall by my measurement. Blade length coming in at about 3.9, and the cutting edge also 3.75. Yeah, about 3.75 inches of cutting edge. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? You can see there, it's a big knife, right? How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Spyderco Para 3? Once again, obviously, same conclusion. It's a big knife. Cutting edge, I mean, it's seriously the cutting edge. Quite enormous compared to the knives that I'm comparing to, which is expected, I guess, because it's a larger knife. Last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Mini Griptilian. And once again, as you can see, it's larger than both. How about carry profile? So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here, not a thick knife. In fact, it's actually thinner, just by a little bit, than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here both the PM2 and Para 3 are actually taller. This thing actually isn't any longer in the pocket than the PM2. So if you've been carrying this guy, you're going to get a lot more blade with this guy, right? That is, of course, if you can carry an automatic knife of this blade length. That's definitely going to be a legality situation for a lot of people, so make sure you check your local laws before you order something like this. It's also nowhere near as tall as either of these because it doesn't have this big, large hump in it. So there you go. How about blade stock thickness? Let's go ahead and measure that here real quick. Blade stock thickness on the Launch 7 coming in at 117 thousandths. Not crazy. In fact, it's pretty thin. What are we looking at for materials? Let me use my new flashlight here that I actually purchased so it'd be a little more convenient to get inside of these things. This is the Olight Warrior 2 Mini. Sometimes they're available and sometimes they aren't. I'll have to try and make sure to link these guys down below from here on out. Yeah, there's nothing on the inside. I mean, there's no milling on the inside. It's just aluminum scales on both sides, which is fine. That's what we usually see on automatic knives. Let's go ahead and weigh it. This thing weighs, I mean, it feels like it weighs maybe 3.5 to 4 ounces. Oh, not even that, 3 1/4. Ratios on this thing are insane. If you're big into ratios or maximizing the amount of cutting edge for weight, wow, that's awesome. This is approaching what I consider to be ultra lightweight in a thin and narrow profile. So, for a lot of people who can legally carry this, this is going to make a lot of sense. I think a lot of people will be really, really happy with that. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. Get out my tools. What do I think here? I bet that pivot's a T8. We're going to check. Pivot is in fact a T8. I'm not going to check these other screws. These are going to be T6. Not my preference, but there's really only 2 of them. These look like Chicago ends. So if you want to take this apart, I don't think it'll be that bad. In fact, a lot of Kershaw knives use that captive pivot, so it really shouldn't be hard at all. Just keep in mind there's usually a coil spring in here for automatic knives, so you're going to have to work against that. That's not always the easiest thing to work with, but you really shouldn't have to take this apart too often. But if you have to, it shouldn't be too complicated. All right, so Kershaw, you know, the U.S. automatic knife market, you know, it kind of there are some other brands out there, right? But the ones that I always look at are like Kershaw's Launch line and then ProTech knives. Now, ProTech, in my opinion, still makes the highest quality production U.S. manufactured side-opening automatic knives in existence. Did I repeat myself somewhere in there? I'm sorry if I did. But Kershaw does an excellent job at roughly half the price, right? Their action's not always quite as snappy, but this guy seems to fire really hard, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's such a long blade. It really feels good to fire. It really feels nice and snappy. It's also locking up completely and totally solid. I know we usually do this at a later time, but this is one of those where it looks like it's off center, but I think if I push it just a little bit, yeah, it's close. I don't want to judge it too hard because this is obviously a user. This is one that's been carried and used a little bit. Usually with Kershaw knives and other knives in general, if it really does come off, you know, if it's off-centered from the factory, you can adjust the pivot and body screws if that's the case, right? In any case, I still like to see them coming centered from the factory. So if you've got one that you bought brand new and it's off center from the factory, that's a bummer. They should definitely be centered, considering we've got plenty of knives at the $50 or less mark that are coming with perfect fit and finish, right? But again, not going to judge this one too hard. Everything else seems to be great. Fit and finish all the way around is great. Ergonomically, you have plenty of room. They do really want your index finger like right here, like very specifically right here. So the funny thing is there's enough room from here to actually choke back on it quite a ways. There's not really a dedicated choke up position, so you're quite a ways from the cutting edge, but there's nothing blocking it because this is an automatic knife, so there's no, you know, thumb disc or shelf or thumb stud or anything like that. So you can truly make full use of that enormous cutting edge. It's got an interesting profile. Something that Kershaw ZT Kai USA does that kind of bothers me, they really insist on this whole like machine-esque sort of robotic aesthetic. Some people really like that. I feel like that did a lot better in the mid to late 2000s, and nowadays it's like, I mean, who am I to say? Maybe it does really well for them, but to me, it doesn't look quite as good. I think I would have appreciated this without little things like these dots and these little things right here, right? Maybe you like that, and that's perfectly fine. I feel like it would look a lot cleaner. This thing is got such a nice straight profile, right? And I do like the colors. This sort of, it's like a blue, very, I don't know, kind of a blue jeans anodized aluminum. It kind of looks nice, right? All these robotic lines like the dots on the backspacer, I could do without that. But you know what? It's not really hurting anything. It is comfortable. The pocket clip, you can definitely feel it a little bit because of where that bill is, right? Not bad. You're definitely locked in. You're not going to drop it thanks to this area that they insist that your index finger is in. So it's fine. It's nothing spectacular, but it's fine. And you know what? All the edges, once again, nicely knocked down. So it's not a painful experience at all. In fact, it's pretty darn good. There's a flat that runs out about, I'm going to say 65% the length of the blade. We have this kind of, it's kind of a drop point, kind of a clip point. It's just a long clip point, right? It drops, you know, a reasonable length down to the cutting edge, which is pretty thin. It's not absolutely insane, but will it get the job done? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I mean, it's thinner than a lot of production knives. It seems to be thinner than a lot of production knives now. So puncturing, breaching tasks, things like that, going to be made easy with that tip. It is going to be a pretty delicate tip. Sorry about that, I had to cut the video. The tip is gonna be a little bit delicate because we don't have a lot of material down here, so I wouldn't be digging in and prying around. What's the steel? They're using CPM 154, which is still my favorite steel of all time. Incredibly well balanced and absolutely appropriate for this knife. It's wonderful. I'd love to see CPM 154 on lots of stuff in this price range, and we see it a lot. We see it usually in the form of 154 CM, which is the ingot, non-powder form version. There's very little difference. The powder form is definitely a little bit better toughness and balance across the board, right? But 154 CM, CPM 154, I often just kind of lump together because they're both just really excellent. And the ingot form's got a fine grain structure anyway. So, really good. So yeah, I don't have much to complain about on the blade. It says Auto Kershaw. I don't think it really needs to say Auto Kershaw, like, you know, in case somebody's like wondering who didn't buy it, if it's laying there and they're like, I wonder if that's an automatic knife. Oh, I guess it is, right? I mean, I don't know. So then we got all this other stuff over here. I'm glad that it's made in the United States. I don't have a problem with it saying made in the USA on there, but Kershaw's always got that stuff all over the place. It's not really hurting anything. It's just kind of an eyesore. Not that big of a deal. Backspacer, aside from the weird dots and things, it looks all right. The pocket clip is a super generic and often repeated across Kershaw's line and ZT's line sometimes pocket clip, and it just sits right on top of the aluminum. It's like they don't have a problem doing all of these other slots everywhere. Why didn't you do a slot on both sides so that it could nest into the aluminum? I think it would look better and function better so it doesn't wiggle over time, but it's fine. It doesn't carry incredibly deep, but it's also not incredibly shallow, so you're going to have about that sticking out of the back. There's shockingly no lanyard thing, which is fine. I don't really care about lanyards, so if you like lanyards, sorry about that. The bill's okay. It drops and then it kind of goes up. You might fight it a little bit on some pocket seams, right? Maybe not. In and out of the pocket, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. The back side of the knife is much the same as the front, except it's got the captive side of the pivot and, of course, the pocket clip. And then you have a little USA flag right there, which is fine. Action's really good on this, and it's nice and smooth. This feels like one of the more snappy launches, and that's probably because of the length of the blade. This is definitely one of the more enjoyable launch knives that I've handled. There have definitely been some launch knives where I'm like, no, I don't like how that looks. They're all good, though. The quality across the board is good. The best thing about these is the combination of materials, the fact that it's made in the United States, and especially the price. What does this come in at? $109? Yeah. Yeah, this is a really, really good value. Absolutely. If you're looking for an automatic knife, right, maybe you've tried the Boker Kalashnikov, which is my budget recommendation for a side opener, and you're ready to climb the ladder a little bit, but you're not quite ready to graduate into Pro-Tech knives, look no further than the Kershaw Launch series. There are definitely knives in the series that I recommend over other ones, but they're all really good in terms of overall quality and especially value. This is awesome. Kershaw does a great job providing some USA-made knives for very, very reasonable prices. In fact, they can't really be beat. I haven't really seen anything that's actually US-made that lands in this price point. So yeah, is this recommendable? Yes. I really wish that some of these lines weren't there. I'm not a huge fan of the pocket clip. I'm hoping they all come centered. It's a bummer if they're a little bit off-centered, but that's easy to fix, right? Very cool. Like I said, you can check this knife out and other Launch Series knives out right down in the description. Thank you again to Juan for sending this in for review. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.